morning. I'm meteorologist Rod Hill, joined by Chris McGinness, and we're giving you the latest look on this potential winter storm situation coming in Thursday and Friday. Chris, I know you've been looking at all the individual models, and right off the bat, are you seeing big differences, or all the models kind of showing the same thing?
Well, they show we're going to see precipitation. The timing is off by a few hours here and there, and some models show more than less, and some models show a changeover from snow to sleet to freezing rain. So I will walk through what the latest runs of those show us here in just a second after you kind of set the table for us.
So here's the table, satellite picture, that big ball of cloudiness offshore, that's what's coming in. We stay basically clear today, and we believe that we're going to have a lot of sunshine actually tomorrow before the clouds start coming in as well. So we do have a KGW weather impact alert up for Thursday through the day Friday, and the nuts and bolts of the headlines. Thursday, incoming snow, if you will, or a wet mix. Modeling on average here in the North Valley around Portland, 1 to 2 inches of snow. We'll get more into that as a potential. Thursday night could be a mix of at least freezing rain, snow, or if temperatures hold just above freezing, it would be rain. That's at least a potential. And then Friday morning, ice, snow, or rain, question mark. Which one are we going to have? Will Friday morning temperatures be closer to 29 or 30 or 33, 34? Obviously, that's a major impact if you're below freezing or just above freezing. Most of the modeling, again, Chris is going to get more into this, they really do love snow, at least some. Model output on average showing up in Longview, 1 to 2 inches of snow. Portland, and remember, Portland sits near the Columbia River with a drying east wind blowing into the system, kind of eating away, if you will, some of the moisture. So Portland, anything from just passing flurries to maybe a couple inches of snow. Salem, multiple models showing more of a 4-inch bullseye for you folks on the ground, developing Thursday morning. Eugene, 1 to 2 inches. And the best bet of freezing rain, from what I have seen, and Chris is going to show you more, it kind of sets up more for Thursday overnight into early Friday morning. What this shows you is just total precip. It doesn't. This is not meant to show you, is this rain, is this ice? This is all the precip coming in. If you melted it down, whatever it turns out to be. Of course, if it's rain, you don't have to melt it down, but the liquid, the liquid moisture in the rain gauge, if you will. So this is not a huge moisture amount. It shows about 2/10 in Portland and Kelso. A little bit wetter down in Salem, just over 3/10, 43 100ths in Corvallis, 46 100ths in Lincoln City down into Newport. So that's part of the equation that we keep an eye on as well. This is a storm with a low that's going to be coming up along the southern Oregon coast Thursday during the day and trying to push warm air in, but the warm air will basically fail thanks to the east winds coming out of the Columbia River Gorge. Here's the Futurecast model we typically show you. So this is Thursday.
This is the graph, right?
Yeah, the graph at 6 a.m. The bluish tones, that's snow in Eugene. And then during the morning, here it is, snow in Salem. This is about 8 o'clock. If this is correct, there could be at least a good 3 hours of it snowing in Salem. Again, this is about 8 o'clock, and then I'll stop the clock at 11. Now, by 11, that's moved out, and it's actually pushed up into Portland. What I didn't go slow enough to show you is that this definitely weakens the snow intensity once it moves up into Portland due to the east winds. But it does show around midday that that initial wave of moisture is pushed off. And then, quite frankly, this doesn't show much in the afternoon. Here's late evening Thursday. That salmon tone could be sleet or freezing rain. It's a mixture of precipitation, and that's as far out as that particular model goes. And I do want to show you temperatures. Thursday morning, freezing numbers. Could be colder. It shows 30 in Salem, Portland, and Corvallis at about 8:45. Could be colder. It only shows, though, during the day, Portland hangs out around freezing. While this is interesting, while Salem warms to 36, Corvallis in a cold pocket, Eugene warms to 37. The coast all warms above freezing.
Coast range.
So, yeah. And then
cold.
The coast range staying cold right there. And then it goes into Friday morning. This is 5 a.m. This does like freezing, 30-degree temperatures in Portland, Salem, Corvallis, Eugene, Longview, all freezing, which would heighten the chance that if you have showery moisture coming in, that it could be, in fact, freezing rain. And we'll get back to the 7-day in a moment, but I do want to show it. Right now I've got 27 for a low Thursday morning in Portland to getting above freezing, which may or may not happen. I've got 30 Friday morning, and if we get drying in the afternoon, that would give us a chance to definitely warm up, maybe as warm as 39 degrees on Friday. So that's the boring part of the presentation. Chris has the exciting part where you've put together different model animations to take us through.
Right, and so one of the models that you were using is a fairly high resolution model. It's hyper focused, and so as we get closer to events, we like to see the hyper focused models kind of lock in, and we're not so sure that the graph model, which we showed there, is exactly it at this moment. So I want to show you, if we can take Max 3 now. We're going to walk through some of this. So this is, a name you've probably heard a lot of, the European model. And I'm going to walk you through. This is kind of a similar map to what Rod just showed you. The difference being here, obviously, it's a different model. The other thing that I wanted to put on here was the wind arrows. You see those things streaming across your screen. That highlights Rod's point that, there's a big reservoir of cold air east of the Cascades. And so that's going to keep filtering through the gorge and through the nooks and crannies in the Cascades into the Willamette Valley. And that'll keep that fresh, cold air at the surface, which, obviously heightens the chance for any mixed precipitation becoming icy if we see any kind of a change over to liquid, right? In any event, here's the European model, 4 o'clock on Thursday morning. Lane County is getting snow. Lynn County is starting to get snow. I'll roll the clock towards the 7 o'clock hour, and I think this kind of G's up with what the graph model was showing with wintry precipitation moving into the central Willamette Valley. So Albany north to Salem, basically, into Marion County, seeing snow during your morning commute on Thursday. And you also know that east wind keeps blowing. Let me roll the clock a little bit. I think it's interesting, Rod, that the snow kind of creeps in all around Portland, right? You get the lift from the Cascades, so it starts snowing up around Mount Hood.
Yeah.
You got the lift against the Coast Range, so it might be snowing in the Coast Range, but maybe not necessarily snowing immediately in the Portland, Vancouver metro area, which, you can talk to that about the wind.
And also, I just happen to have a friend that's traveling on Thursday, and they're traveling southward into California. So what I want to point out here, see the green down south of Lane County? That would be rain. That would be a southwestern corner of Oregon showing some warming and pulling out of any winter event, at least for the time being, while the rest of us are getting some snow.
So in any event, the European would suggest snow getting into the Portland metro area sometime between 8 and 11 on Thursday morning, give or take, right? Obviously, we're still 48 plus hours out from the event, so this is going to be massaged a little bit. But it's interesting to note that as I roll the clock here through the noon hour and into the afternoon, that the European also drives that initial band up through the area north of Portland and then up towards Kelso, Longview, and Chehalis and points north. And it doesn't necessarily fill it in very much until Friday morning. So moisture is a question on the European model, right? And as it is on the graph. Okay, so let's show you a little different run here. The next one we're going to come up to is the GFS. Same general area outlook. You can see the east wind setup still. The GFS is more aggressive with the snow coming in, and it has it into the central Willamette Valley long before sunrise and knocking on the doorstep here in Portland, by morning commute time. This is at 9 a.m. or a little past 9 a.m. on Thursday. Again, the east wind still prevalent. The track of the low still favorable to keep, areas to the north of that track will be wintry in the terms of snow, sleet, freezing rain, etc., depending on what the temperature profile exactly is at the atmosphere over your head. And then as I roll the clock, again, the GFS is fairly aggressive with moisture. It was more aggressive yesterday, and it looks to be more aggressive today. And when I say that, I mean it's producing more moisture. So more moisture in the cold air would translate to potentially some higher snowfall amounts. We'll get to that in a second. The GFS does show that storm system winding down during the day on Friday, and that kind of exiting the picture. All right, this is another look. Again, this is the model that Rod showed you. This is a higher resolution, so if it looks a little different, that's because it resolves to finer detail. These models only go out about 60 to 72 hours because they're crunching so much data.
We should mention that the improved resolution means it absolutely picks up the east wind a little bit better. The drying effect coming out of the gorge because of that. Some of our topography it picks up those microclimates a little bit better.
Exactly, and so this still hits Lane County by 5 o'clock in the morning, Lynn County and into Marion County between 7 and 9. And that's a pretty decent band of snow that could be snowing for a couple of hours. And then look at it. It just kind of fizzles.
Yeah.
And so
again, we have the warming across the southern portion of our state.
Right. And that's surely because it's just wrapping warm air into that system as it rolls over the central Oregon coast. All right, let's talk about potential snowfall amounts. I know Rod gave you kind of a numerical forecast there. This is kind of interesting. Take this 100% with a grain of salt. This is just, I'm just going to call this eye candy for now, but it's in the realm of, this is one of the things we look at. I think the GFS right there is showing us a pretty nice pocket over the metro area that is extremely eaten away at by that east wind.
The lightest blue tone that you're showing between Portland and Troutdale.
So if that's right, the east wind's blowing all morning long, and it's really kind of sucking the moisture out of the air, and maybe we only pick up a half an inch of snow, whereas areas down to the south where the moisture is a little more consistent see more snow. But of course, the farther south you are, the closer you get to the warm air, which means the closer you get to a possible transition to sleet, freezing rain, and eventually just plain rain.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, at least for now, this is quite a bit on the high end there for Polk and Marion counties. These numbers definitely skew towards really, really high for the central and southern Willamette Valley. And I would say at this point, I'll just speak for myself here, looking at that looks quite a bit on the high side of reality.
Although, would you agree that it does make sense that whatever Portland ends up getting, whatever Salem ends up getting, that Salem has a good chance to have more snow actually on the ground at some point than Portland does?
More precipitation
because of the east wind effect coming out.
Sure, that's fair. That's fair. So let's show that's the GFS. Now let's show the European. Yesterday I showed this at lunchtime, and the GFS was more aggressive with snowfall amounts for Portland. Interesting that we've done a little flip-flop from yesterday at noon.
Yeah.
The GFS was showing 4 point something. Today it's only showing less than an inch, while the Euro, which is a very trusted model, we might add.
Yeah.
It's good resolution, and it's showing 1 to 2 inches widespread across the heart of the metro area, about 2 inches up towards Longview, about 1.5 inches down towards Woodburn, and then we'll wait and see. And then one last thing I wanted to show you for the potential of ice.
Is this just freezing rain, Chris?
This is just freezing rain.
Okay.
So this is the scenario, which of course is worst case scenario of wintry precipitation types. It's water falling out of the sky that freezes on contact. It seems to like the Coast Range, especially Tillamook and Lincoln counties, getting hit with possibly some significant ice. I would think that would be some of the higher terrain and some of the Coast Range valleys that are going to be most susceptible to that. Not a lot showing up in the valley, but enough. I mean, that blue shading there shows anywhere upwards of, a trace to upwards of, 1/1500ths of an inch of ice. Now, I don't know what our threshold is for, meaningful ice accumulation in terms of meaningful ice accumulation on power lines, but certainly any ice accumulation on the roads is impactful to your commute. So
absolutely.
That's something that we need to watch out for too. And as we've been saying since the beginning, all the precipitation types are in play for now until further notice.
Give me your Professor McGinness, if you would. So this model shows no freezing rain chance, or accumulation anyway, in Portland down through Newburgh and Hillsborough, for example. That's where the map is showing nothing. Why is that, in your opinion, that this is tied obviously to the east outflow out of the gorge, but why would you say the model says nope, just snow for Portland, no freezing rain, but there's a freezing rain chance to our south? And
I think I know where you're going with that, and I think what that points to is the depth, the thickness of the cold air coming through the gorge. Remember, we've got the temperatures yesterday and this morning were well below zero in eastern Oregon. So there's the freezer. And then the gorge is what I like to call the freezer door. And the freezer door is open. So the wind's going to come gusting through the gorge here. And in fact, the wind intensity should probably pick up a little bit tonight and tomorrow in some of the gustier gorge spots. And basically what that is just the fresh flow of cold, dry air. If that cold, dry air is deep enough, then it extends all the way up, from the precipitation falling out of the cloud. Well, I should get that graphic ready rather than sitting here using my hands. But the point is that the depth of that cold air, it never erodes, right? And by cold air, we're just saying anything below 32 degrees. Well, for that'll suffice as our definition of cold air. That 32 or colder air is from the ground all the way up, or from really close to the ground all the way up to where the precipitation is coming from. And that's probably why we don't, at least on this model, see the ice threat as big in the metro area and out into Washington County. But that said, That's still 24 or 36 hours out, and I would not be prepared to take ice off the table, even in Portland, period.
So I'm looking at that map close. It had Molalla at 1/10 of an inch of possible accumulating ice from freezing rain
as well, yeah.
Most of those are zeros. And the way this plot situation looks, if you look at Dallas, 0, Silverton, 0.
It's likely
but
going, if it's less than a 1/10, it's not showing, yeah.
So it's a trace to less than 1/10 of an inch of ice, but as Chris pointed out, it doesn't take much on a roadway to have some issues. So to me, this is a really important travel map. If it were correct, it tells you that coming into Portland, you're basically going to see snow, but no realistic ice threat. But as you drop to the south and as you work up into the Coast Range, now you're particularly seeing a heightened risk of what could be some snow at times or freezing rain.
That said, that is one model's interpretation of it. I don't think that you, I, Matt, Joe, I don't think any of us would be necessarily willing to take the threat of freezing rain off the table for the Portland metro area through Friday. I think that there's still some questions as to, track, timing the moisture, and how long and how deep that cold air stays in place to give us various precipitation types.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, to recap, what we're talking about, moisture that begins Thursday morning from the south. Some of the models shows it's snowing in Eugene at 5 in the morning.
Right.
And then at some point, maybe mid-morning-ish, we start seeing some snow work up into Portland. Keep in mind that in these situations, it could be snowing really good in Salem, and by the time the snow gets up near the Columbia River Gorge outflow, the east winds eat it up, and Portland literally sees flurries. That's at least a potential. Right. Or we have the ongoing threat of some accumulating snow. And then the models really like the moisture, most of them breaking up a little bit in the afternoon, and then pretty much the threat of snow of our precipitation in general winding down somewhere around noon or going into the afternoon on Friday. Is that basically
right? And then some of that depends on the wraparound, and to use a fancy term, deformation band of the confluence of air on the northern edge of that. That's fancy term to basically talk about wraparound moisture on the backside of a storm.
So my final thoughts, I'm going to give you a final thought as well. My final thought on this, there are zero signs that this is a huge major winter storm where we're going to get 6, 7 inches of snow, where we're going to have the type of freezing rain that brings down power lines because you have 3/4 of an inch of ice accumulating. There are zero signs of any of that. What this looks to be is we have some moisture coming in Thursday morning. It's a good chance it starts off with snow. We're not sure if we get, just flurries in some areas or accumulation of an inch or two in others. There's a chance that we start getting some showery weather that's freezing rain or snow mixing with scattered locations Thursday overnight into Friday morning, which we have concerns of icy roads. And then during the day, Friday, everything starts to dry out. Your final take on it, sir?
Precipitation type and amount is still in question. How much moisture we're going to have, and also how, in terms of road impacts, how continuous is that? I mean, as we showed, a couple of the models show that initial band coming in, and then there's hours and hours and hours of nothing. So if that scenario plays out, it's a little early to say that, by the way, but if that scenario plays out, this is an inconvenient event to maybe a little slick versus if it's continuous, one that could aid towards the precipitation type staying more snow than changing over. Then it becomes, I think, a little bit more impactful. Your first point was you don't see this as like a big 6, 8, 10 inch dump in Portland. I would agree. At this point, it doesn't look like that. Now, if it's ice,
doesn't take much.
Doesn't take much. So just stay tuned on that. Obviously, we are at this point. We think about 48 hours out from the onset of precipitation here in Portland. Today's Tuesday. We think this comes in on Thursday. If we sound like we're talking a lot and don't have a lot of answers, that's because we don't.
We don't. And one of the big questions before we let you go, to me, is the temperature. Are we going to get above freezing Thursday, which means there could actually, if it's snowing, it wouldn't be sticking. There could actually be a bit of a rain mix, or do we hold at 32, which means, there's a better chance of sticking snow throughout the day no matter what comes in. And I think most of the data supports us being below freezing Friday, but that's not a slam dunk. There's at least a chance that we're holding near to above freezing going into Friday morning. So I'm not going to have much confidence to lay down much more definition on this setup until I get better confidence in what the temperature is going to end up being. Hopefully that comes tomorrow.
Significant impacts seem fairly likely for at least the Thursday afternoon commute and the Friday morning commute. I think that's fair to feel fairly confident in that. Whether or not it's getting into the Thursday morning commute And if we thaw out fast enough on Friday that it doesn't impact whatever Friday afternoon commute, those are questions. So lots of questions, and those things will become more defined probably in the next 12 to 24 hours.
So it's Tuesday morning, just so we can end on a high note. I'm going sunny today. Where are you going?
I'm going to look right there. That looks good.
Enjoy the sun. Our chief meteorologist, Matt Zafino, will be on the news starting at 4 o'clock this afternoon with his updates. Chris and I, of course, will be here
by the way,
on
Friday.
Sunrise tomorrow morning.
Nice pink tie.
Thank you. For now, thank you for watching our KGW look at this potential winter weather coming in on Thursday and Friday.